Alright, welcome back to the Supercoach Nuff channel. In this video we're going to do our live reaction for Team List Tuesday for round 7. But as usual, before we get to that, it is a few minutes before 4 o'clock. We will have a look at the Sports Deck Dream Team results. So I guess what I thought was a pretty good week, given I scored 924 points, which is pretty good for a regular Sports Deck week. Unfortunately, it was only good enough for the top 26% for the round, even though the average was 800. So there must have been some monster scores this week, including my head-to-head matchup, which was a bit unfortunate. But a green arrow is a green arrow. We're up about 100 spots into 786k. Oh, 786, sorry. 786k, I don't know what I'm doing there. But I guess our hookers were a bit disappointing this week. So Marshall King with a 35, Coruscant with a 43. So that's okay. We'll cop that. Terrell May was back in prime form with a 74. Josh Curran with a 54, and Sam Hughes on our bench with a 39, which probably generally the Sports Deck scores can be a bit sort of what's the word, like damaged perhaps by things like drop balls and stuff, but Sam Hughes' ratio is pretty good there, so must have actually played a bit better than I thought. In our second row, we had Hopgood with a 63. Nikora, we sort of doubled down on him and brought him in with a 63. Fini Fuyaki with a 33, so he's just slow burning along. Morgan Smithies with a 72 off the bench was great, and James Salmon with a 48 was also very handy. I guess where we let ourselves down a little bit was Captaining Hines with a 48. Ethan Strange with a 50 was solid, so we'll cop that. Hutchison, another flat game with a 14, and well and truly on the chopping block in terms of Sports Deck this week. Kale Ero with a 43. We went early on bringing him in, but looks like that's going to be a decent selection, obviously pending team list in about 5 minutes. Jack Bostock with a 43. So I'm imagining that they'll do something similar to Supercoach with the dual positions, and Bostock should get the wing. Well, I did notice that Curran is front row, second row. I don't know if that was from the beginning, because I remember I had him in the second row to start with. So I just realised that Bostock should probably end up down here. But yeah, I mean, at 43, I think we can hold him another week. He's sort of at his average there, but I think he might make a little bit more cash. I would have to look at that a bit closer. But we had Callan Ponga as VC, so the 79 would have been nice over Hines, but these things happen. Tom Trbojevic with the 54 was solid, and Ryan Pappenhausen with the 53. And we brought in James Schiller as well, and obviously he did the business with 50 and made us a good 100k by the look of it, or 99.8, so close enough. I guess if we look at the head-to-head, as we said, we got pipped at the post by Shoab's Guns N' Roses. So 941, excellent effort from Shoab. So captained Ryan Pappenhausen as well, so slight advantage there with the captain. Had Kai Pearce-Paul, which was nice. Had the hammer, so I guess that sort of counteracts Hutchison's rough score. But I think the difference maker was probably Sean Johnson with his 84. So, yeah, definitely one we need to look at getting in as soon as possible. And yeah, I guess, like looking at the other scores, they weren't fantastic. Kick out of the 63 was good, but, we matched that with Hopgood or Nikora, probably is the more like-for-like match. Scott Drinkwater with the 62. Yeah, again, we had Hopgood with the 63 to cover that. So I guess it's just these little few points here and there. And Sean Johnson was probably the big difference maker for us at the end of the day. We're still trying to carry Nathan Cleary, and the rumours are that he won't be named this afternoon. So a bit frustrating. But as you can see, like I said, a few big scores in this league in particular. So Field of Dreams with a 988. So Captain Hines as well. But I guess, had Ponga, May, Jamal Fogarty with the 69, Thermal, that could be a nickname, just mash it up. 63, so a couple of good returns there. Both having Kai Pearce-Paul as well is pretty handy there. But I guess Hell's Granny top scored with 1,022. And that included having Farmer Silly as the auto emergency. So VC Ponga, great return there. I was looking through. Dylan Brown with the 73 bounce back, which was nice to have. Fanua Blake and Jake Travojevic with the 68. That's pretty good from the big fella. And just solid all the way through. Lots of 50s there, so I guess they all add up when you stack them up together, which is good stuff. But yeah, I guess just to sort of show how well this league is going, I'll just quickly go to the leagues. And we're struggling way down at the bottom of the table, which isn't great. But I never profess to be the world's best expert at this stuff. But you can see we've got two guys sitting equal 40th, so exactly on 5,226. So well done, Shane and Shoaib. We've got Field of Dreams, so Daniel's team in the top 120. So pretty competitive league, even though I'm sitting fifth in the total points head to head. It is a absolute struggle. I guess points against is a bit disappointing when you look at that. 4,500 makes it tough, but Hell's Granny isn't far behind me, and Wayne's won 2 games, so it's not all down to bad luck. Let's just say. But we've got another minute or so until the team lists are sort of available on the website. So just quickly, in terms of initial thoughts on this, I guess we'd said Hutchinson's out, and we've already gone early on Eero. But interestingly enough, one of the options that does come up, and I'll sort by average, Tamari Martin. So playing 5'8", but eligible as a centre wing fullback. So we're just going to do that swap. We're actually make 80k out of it, or 80k, because it's about 310. And probably an upgrade in that position given Hutchinson's form at the time. May even not make it onto the team list that we're about to look at. In terms of the second trade, I haven't really committed to anything. But I don't think there's an issue given, we've got 30 trades left. We've only got 2 boosts left. Maybe we just save a trade. It's not the end of the world. I think the team's pretty good. We'll have Galvin back this week. We don't actually have any South players on the bye. So, assuming, injuries aside, so Flegler and Cleary probably being the big 2. Hopefully we get Tedesco back, we get Galvin back. And then we have to actually make some decisions about who we pick. But we're not here to sort of dwell on Sports Deck. We're here to get the team lists in. So let's refresh the page. Breaking news, NRL team lists. So Galvin Tedesco in the picture, that's always a great sign. And Nelson back, so good stuff. Roosters Storm. So Tedesco at fullback. Michael Jennings still in the centres. Joey Manu sounds like he's going to Japanese rugby next year, so Super Coach is lost. We will have to bring him in at some point to send him off the right way. No Sam Walker. He's on the reserves in 22, so maybe one to keep an eye on over the next day or two. But forward pack looks the same. Angus Crichton, very popular. Obviously, look a bit silly after last week suggesting he wouldn't play 80. He played 80 and crushed it. So might be one I even bring in this week. Especially given on the bench they've got Nafari White, Egan Butcher, who could play on the edge, but you'd imagine that would be their middle rotation. And Zach Docker-Clay is obviously there to spell Brandon Smith when needed. So I think, good signs for Angus Crichton if you wanted to bring him in. For the Storm, back 7 looks as per usual. Nelson named to start in the 8. I think Kama Kamitha must be out, yep. And Tepai Moroa misses as well. So Joe Chan named on the bench, so that could be an issue for Sean Bloor perhaps, who we have in fantasy, and I know he's a popular sort of option across the fantasy options. So just one to watch out for. But I guess for those who have Joe Chan and held, he will make a little bit of cash, but Unless they're going to play him some minutes in the middle, it might not be anything too extravagant. Cool. So Dragons Warriors. Zach Lomax moved to the centre, so that's interesting. He has been absolutely carving on the wing, and they're going to push him in a bit. So interesting to see how that affects his Supercoach scoring or even fantasy scoring for those that are watching from a fantasy perspective. In the forwards, so it looks like they're still running with Laurie and DeBellin on the bench. For Talamarinos, Sua, Eisenhuth. So Luciano missing, or he must have been missing last week too. Obviously, I've missed that. So I haven't looked too closely at Fatala Mariner as a fantasy option, but may need to given the makeup of the team there. And for the Warriors, so decent back seven. A lot of people getting around with Tenny Zalesniak. Apparently went massive against the Dragons last year. And I know there was a comment actually. There's been a lot of comments recently, so I should thank everyone for that. While we talk about the comments, someone saying that they had quite a few Warriors players and they were a bit concerned about holding so many. But when you look at the Warriors draw, they have missed round 13, round 19, which are both Origin weekends where you're only going to have best 13 in fantasy and best 13 in Supercoach as well. And then they don't have the third bye until round 27. So obviously, if you can flick them out or bench them in that last week, there's nothing to say that you can't carry a heap of Warriors through the whole season. They'll cover every other round except for those two Origin rounds where you only need those limited numbers anyway. So, that's sort of, for me, elevated the stocks of one S. Johnson. He's trying to work out how to get him in. We do have 3 trades in fantasy, which is nice. We've got trade boosts in Supercoach. Obviously, not as many halfback slots in Supercoach, but he is high on my list of trade-ins based off that. But also, Wade Egan playing 80 minutes at hooker, another great option. Tohu, we all know what he's about in fantasy and Supercoach circles. RTS, CNK's in good form. Tamari Martin, obviously, as a cheap option. So I think, if there was one team that you could get away with loading up, and also, the Warriors as a team are crushing it. So I would be having a good look at some Warriors assets. On the bench, Chanel Harris-Tavita and Adam Pompey. So interesting, they've gone a half and an outside back essentially on their bench. So Ale and Laban in the middle. But obviously you've got the likes of Barnett, Harris, even Fanua Blake can play big minutes. So why not treat yourself to some luxuries on the bench when you've got this absolute weapon of a forward pack? Eels Dolphins. So the Eels, I guess we'll skip down the bottom because the rumours Talangi coming onto the bench as that sort of X factor type player. So if you've held, I think you can hold him this week, get a bit of cash, but obviously not expecting a lot of points. As I just clean up my laptop there, spilled something on it. But Dejan Arzi's still at 6. I think not too many changes other than that bench change by the look of it. Yeah, so Tuolangi just drops down into the reserves as that change. But other than that, as per last week, so Dylan Brown's in a bit of form, so well done to those that held. I was not one of them. For the Dolphins, so Trey Fuller named at fullback. I'm pretty sure he did get at least one game last year, so not a bottom-priced rookie by any stretch, but definitely one to consider in fantasy. May just be dependent on the time frame of the hammer and his hamstring. But I guess as well, if he's the one that's going to fill in for the hammer when he's injured, might be the one that fills in during the Origin too. And remember, the Dolphins play all 3 games over Origin. So if the hammer's out, Fuller is in for round 13, 16, 19. So that could be a really good asset to have a look at. Averillo and New in the centres, that's the same as last week. Max Plath back in the 13. So he's now second row eligible as well. So if you did want to bring him in, and you've got the likes of Strange, Galvin, Tamaro Martin this week perhaps in your 5/8 spot, you can bring in Plath in the second row as that sort of cheaper option. And the bench, so Sean O'Sullivan on the bench, obviously with Milford out, so they are trying to make sure they cover their halves. Obviously, an outside back gets injured. Nikorima just slots in. He's probably actually the utility in the team. So, yeah, I guess that's fair enough. Panthers and Tigers. So Brad Schneider in the 7 jumps out straight away for the Panthers. Other than that, looks pretty well business as usual. So I know a few people got off Liam Henry after his -1 in Supercoach, but his cash generation will stall, but definitely will be a useful one to have through the Origin period. So don't stress if you've got him in your team still. And for the Tigers, Galvin back in is nice. We want to see that. Fino still on the bench, so was it Sullivan must have got injured perhaps? Not too sure. Maybe he's just making weight, don't know. Is he in the extender reserve? Not too sure what's going on there with Jane Sullivan, but should probably pay more attention. But other than that, Stefano's been good. Another one who made me look silly, suggesting he was maybe a trap last week. He's in good form. Not to say that he's a must get in the front row, but yeah, he's doing well. So well done if you did bring him in. And I guess the bench looks pretty standard, so I think we can move on. Titans Seagulls. So for the Titans, Phil Sammy has moved to fullback. So I would have thought maybe Kinney would make way or find his way in, but he's on the extended reserve. So I guess well done for Philip Sammy owners. I might be having a sneaky look to see if he's available in drafts, if he's playing fullback, because I do like that idea. AJ at 6, I think that's a pretty good call too. 4 at 7, I guess he's probably the one to put there if you're going to put someone there. Chris Randall, so he's been playing massive minutes. Even when Verrills has come on, he just plays like a lock forward. So another one that I have had a bit of a think about bringing in. But other than that, pretty sort of much the same as last week. The Seagulls. Jason Saab back, which is good news. Ben Travojevic out with that hamstring injury, so Ruben Garrick just slots straight back in. That's pretty easy. And then the rest, I think the forward pack all looks the same. Matt Lodge back in for Toff Sipley was missing it, and Josh Aloier. So, or maybe Aaron Woods. Yeah, I don't think he's played this year, has he? Probably says here. Matt Lodge names. Must have played last week. Nathan Brown back in. There you go. Probably suggests this Supercoach relevance to some of these guys when I completely don't realise they've been in the team or not. The Broncos, there's still no Adam Reynolds. Is he on the extended bench? He is not. So still going with the Sailor and Smoothie combination on the bench. So Willison and Hetherington, the 2 middle forwards. So, I've been seriously considering Willison in a lot of teams. And, it's not just for like this bit of time. Obviously, Payne Haas isn't too far away, but also covering through that Origin period where Haas, Carrigan will miss out. I think that's it. I think Ricky's a real rough chance of a Queensland gig, but he might even be a New Zealander. I'm not too sure. And the Raiders looking very much the same. James Schiller still on the wing. Still no Albert Hopewadi. I think they said he was going to return via New South Wales Cup this week. So we'll keep riding the Schiller wave. Hoping for a big one from Chevy Stewart so we can bring him in next week. I think even if it's not a big one, we will seriously consider. Mariota named on the edge, so that's a potentially interesting one. Although they have named Sasagi maybe, if that's how you say that, on the bench. I think he plays a bit more edge than middle. So, Mariota might slide in at that point. But, yeah, a few good options there. Joe Tarpany's always solid. Smithies has been good. Fogarty, obviously killing it as the dominant half. Strange, maybe a bit too late to get on him unless you want to keep him as a, versatile centre 5/8 for the season. Um, yeah, I think, Stewart is the one that we are targeting though for next week in Supercoach. Bulldogs Knights. So for the Bulldogs, Connor Tracy actually named it fullback. So no Blake Taff. Oh, he's named on the bench. Okay, interesting. So Tracy at fullback, Kiraz, Cherry and Crichton in the centres. Adokar. This is basically how they played last week. Burdo and Hutchinson of the halves. So Toby Sexton's still on the extended reserve, despite, I guess, calls that bring him in. Sam Hughes and Chris Patolo to start with Farmer Silly and Moran on the bench. Kickout, Salmon, Curran, and then Hayward and Taff. So Hayward looked like he came on and basically played as a lock forward, which I thought was pretty interesting, given that he's really, a half or hooker type. But I guess just a tough kid that, can defend in the middle. I guess, playing a bit of hooker has basically made that happen. So yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how they use Taff. I don't think he can come on as a middle lock forward. I have a sneaky feeling if it doesn't go well, they could give Hutcho the chop and basically just bring Taff in as a halfback, perhaps. Or, I don't know, they might try something super funky like putting Crichton in at 6, Burton at 7, Tracy into the centres. I don't know. It's an interesting one, but when is it? Sunday, 2 o'clock. Might be on the road back from Bow Desert, so I'll have to get on the radio for that one. And for the Knights, we've got Ponga. Yeah, it looks pretty much like full strength in the back line. Thompson, was he out last week? I'm not too sure. Yeah, it looks like it's 1 to 17 from last week. Yeah, unchanged lineup. Well done, me. So Kai Pearce Paul's been crushing it. Adam Elliott, has been scoring well too. So yeah, good stuff there. And obviously Kalen Ponga. If you think not the Bulldogs have been better this year, but Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock. Well, that's good conditions for Kalen to do his thing. And the Sharks and Cowboys, which I think is the last game for the round from memory. So Iro named for his third game, so number one trading target for Supercoach this week. Probably, actually, I might have Tamari Martin just above because of job security. You've still got Talakai on the bench, and there's not a lot of forward depth on the bench. There must still be a couple injured. I feel like Royce Hunt, he's not named there. So, but other than that, they've gone with their sort of four forwards for lack of a better sort of term. With if you include Talakai in that, obviously if there was an outside back injury, he would slot in there. Well, I have seen an unfamiliar name just now, Samuel Stonestreet. So in for Sione Katoa, I think he got a suspension, didn't he? So 1 week making his debut, probably it is a 1 week deal, so I wouldn't worry about him even for fantasy. I think there was another name that popped up as a option this week, but I've completely forgotten. I'll have to go all the way back through to work it out. Trey Fuller, that was the one. So I don't know if, like I said, I don't think Trey Fuller's bottom dollar, but and again, Hammer's injury might be different length of time, but he'll sort of also fill in during Origin. So yeah, so don't need to worry about Stonestreet, but well done on making your debut this week. And for the Cowboys, so same team as last week from what it appears. So Tom Chester might be a bit of an interesting play. I guess the issue with Supercoach is he's only available at fullback, so he wouldn't get centre status now or centre wing status, I should say, until round 12, just before Origin. And that's a long time to have, a cheapish fullback on your second fullback slot essentially. But definitely one I am considering for fantasy, given that Jaden Campbell is out injured. So other than that, fill up on your drink waters, your Holmes. Although Holmes obviously has Origin coming up, so just be mindful of that. Ruben Cotter, similar story. Reece Robson, if you like him, again, he might be in the frame for New South Wales. But yeah, it's all much of the same from the Cowboys, which is what I guess you want to see when your club's doing well. So that's it for the team lists. As I said, probably the biggish news is Connor Tracy at fullback is maybe sort of big news. Nothing too big there, I don't think. Maybe like Phil Samuel at fullback. It's all these sort of draft plays and that sort of thing. No, Cleary's probably big news, I suppose, but it was already sort of said. Um, yeah, Trey Fuller at fullback over like Nikorima or Averillo even slotting in. A few people were shouting that. Zach Lomax to the centres, big news perhaps. But yeah, I guess if that's the biggest news we've got, well then it's not really that big of a week. But I guess definitely moves we can make. So um, as per usual, we'll do the tops, chops, traps, and slaps video tomorrow for both Supercoach and Fantasy. We'll do the round previews on Thursday where I'll show you my moves for the week. But I guess before we wrap it up, I did just want to say a big thank you to everyone out there. I've got to 350 subscribers now, and it seems to be sort of moving at about 10 a week, which is pretty crazy. Considering, I guess, the only time I really do pump up the channel is this bit at the end, where we do the obligatory comment below if you've got any thoughts or feelings or suggestions about anything. Give us a like if you enjoy the team list stuff. It's a little bit trickier now that it's 4 o'clock. You sort of got to sit around for a bit after work and wait for it, but it's all good. It is what it is. But yeah, for those who are getting on board, thank you. But if you're not, feel free to subscribe for all the fantasy sports content we've got on the channel. And other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.